Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Daniel's son. Well, I got a special review for y'all today, and it's going to be special in for a lot of different reasons. The first reason is this is going to be my first rose review, and this particular fragrance that I'm going to be talking about is a very special and unique rose fragrance. It is called Noir de Noir by Tom Ford. This is from his private blend collection. I'm also at the very end of this review. I'm going to talk about this. This fragrance actually has a clone. It is from Armaf. It is called Club de Nuit Intense for Women. I'm not going to be talking about this a lot, except at the very end, and you'll find out why I'm not going to be talking about this a lot. Stay tuned for that. First, I want to give a shout out to Yves Dirac. I've given Yves Dirac, I think, more shout outs than anybody since as long as I've been doing reviews, and for good reason. And I'm glad of that, because Yves Dirac over the last year and a half has sent me quite a few samples of stuff to try, and if it wasn't for all the samples that she has given me, there would be a lot less reviews on this YouTube channel, because there's no way I would be able to afford some of the fragrances that I've reviewed if it wasn't for her, and actually a lot of other people that sent me samples too. But big shout out to Yves Dirac. She's a really good friend of mine, and she's like helped me out tremendously on my channel. 5 or 6 months ago, I didn't know anything about rose fragrances. I knew what roses smelled like, and I knew that they were rose fragrances, but I never experienced really any rose fragrances, so I didn't really know anything about them. A few months ago, I was on one of the fragrance Facebook groups, and there was a couple of people having a discussion about rose fragrances. I read all the comments, and that got me a little bit interested in rose fragrances. So I posted a comment in several of the Facebook groups, the fragrance Facebook groups, and my question was, what is your favorite rose fragrance? And a lot of people responded to that question, male and female, and a lot of people commented back their favorite rose fragrance and why it was their favorite. And I noticed something. There was a majority of people that said that this Noir de Noir by Tom Ford was their favorite rose fragrance. So I thought that was interesting, and that made me even more interested in rose fragrances, especially since so many men and males responded to that question. So I was having a conversation with Eve, and she sent me a few of her favorite rose fragrances. And I'm so grateful for that, because now I'm like a rose head. I guess you would call us rose head. Somebody that's really into rose. And out of all the rose fragrances that she sent me, I think this is probably my favorite one. Maybe it's up there in the top 2 anyway. But let me give you the notes to this first, and then I'll go on. The notes to this are saffron, black truffle, rose, patchouli, tree moss, oud, and vanilla. The first day that I got this, I had to try this one first, because I've heard so much about it, and I've heard so many fragrance reviewers talk about it. And I'll tell you the first thing I got from this fragrance when I first sprayed it on. A beautiful rose. I mean, a really beautiful fresh cut rose really organic, really realistic smell. It smells like fresh cut roses to me. So that was very, very pleasant for me to smell that beautiful rose. Now we're talking. Now I have a real rose fragrance. But that wasn't it. Within a couple of minutes of that really beautiful, realistic rose that came in, there was something else that came in, and it was very unique. And now I know what it was. It was a combination of the saffron and the black truffle that came in and mixed with that rose. And now that beautiful, realistic, organic smelling rose was now a beautiful, realistic, earthy, unique, unusual rose. And it took me a few wearings to really, really think about if I like that or not, because I was trying to wrap my head around, do I like this? I've never smelled anything like this before, ever, at all. I have a lot of fragrances in my collection, and this is like one of the most unique ones because I don't have anything else like this. So it took me a few wearings to realize if I like that saffron and black truffle mixed with that rose. And it is a big yes. I was like, I like this. This is really, really unique. And so 2 big thumbs up already, and it's not even like to the dry down yet. It's a good sign. But it actually stays that way. It stays that way until it gets to the mid. And once it gets into the mid, the oud comes in. And this is where it gets even more unusual and more unique, because when the oud comes in, oud can actually have different smells depending on what kind of oud, where the oud's from, how it's blended into the fragrance. Oud can have a woody smell. You can have a woody oud. You can have a earthy oud. You can have a rooty, animalic, skanky oud. There's different kinds of ouds depending on how it's blended. It gets really complicated. This oud that comes in the mid is actually a little bit woody, very earthy, and a little bit animalic. And as most of y'all know, I do not like animalic fragrances whatsoever, especially when they get skanky. But this is a beautiful combination of like a couple of different ouds almost. Beautiful earthiness. It's got a slightly woody oud smell, and it does have an animalic oud smell, but it doesn't get to the point to where it's like gets nasty. It does not get nasty. It doesn't get to that point. Actually, a combination of all those give this fragrance more character, I think. It gives it even more uniqueness. But what a beautiful, 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 unusual rose fragrance. I wasn't actually expecting this. Even though I read about it and heard people talk about it, you have to experience this to really, really, really get it. You have to experience this to really understand how beautiful this fragrance is, as far as I'm concerned. I don't have a lot of Tom Ford. I think I've only tried 3 Tom Fords so far, and I'm a huge fan of Tom Ford. I wish I could afford to buy everything from his fragrance line, but don't think so. Don't have that kind of money. But this is another brilliant piece of artwork from Tom Ford as far as I'm concerned. So realistic, so unusual, and so unique, so well blended, so high quality. I think my 2 favorite things about this fragrance is, there's nothing negative I could possibly say about this fragrance, but my 2 favorite two favorite things would probably have to be how realistic the rose is, and just the overall uniqueness and how unusual this fragrance is, because there's nothing else out there like this. But man, God, I love this fragrance. I'm so into rose now. I'm really into rose, and that Montel that Rose sent me a little sample of too. Man, Cafe, boy, that's good too. So it would have to be the Tom Ford and the Montel that she sent me are my two favorites. But beautiful, 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 realistic. And actually, now that is pretty much the end of my review, I wanted to mention the clone. And I will tell you why I didn't have a lot to say about this fragrance. There's a couple of reviewers that's done a comparison between the Tom Ford and the Armaf Club de Nuit Intense for Women. A couple of them have done comparison reviews between the two, and the reason that I don't have a lot to say about this one is because I agree with them. The two reviews that I've seen are basically saying this clone of Tom Ford is basically the same thing as Tom Ford. It's almost identical. And that's my conclusion also. I've done 5 different wearings of each of these, wearing these at the same time. I've done it 5 different times, and basically what I get is if you sprayed the Armaf on one arm and sprayed Tom Ford on another arm, and I didn't know which was which, I would not be able to tell. I wouldn't be able to tell which was the Tom Ford. And these clones, man, these clones are excellent these days. I did the Polo clone and the Polo comparison, and those were identical. I did the Shades Blue by Armaf and the Bleu de Chanel comparison, and those two were almost as exactly identical. This is no different. This is almost a carbon copy of Tom Ford. So I've reached the same conclusion. This is basically the same thing as Tom Ford. There is some slight differences, but in general, it smells exactly like Tom Ford as far as I'm concerned. And I've done it 5 times. I've worn these back to back 5 times. So no matter which one you pick, I suggest, if you don't like rose, I suggest that you get one of these. If you do like rose and you haven't tried either one of these, I suggest you try these two. If you're not familiar with rose fragrances, and if you've never smelled any, I highly suggest that you try one of these, because it's beautiful, beautiful rose. And it doesn't matter which one you get as long as you get one of them, because I highly, highly recommend either one of these. It doesn't matter. Actually, if I had to, I'm actually only going to put one link in the description, and that's going to be on the Armaf, because I think would be a waste of your money if you spent, for 50 ml of this, it's going to be $250 for 50 ml. You can get 100 ml for, what, $35, I think. So I'll put the link to the Armaf in the description if you want a really unique, dark, unusual rose fragrance. But I hope y'all got something from this, and I will be back very soon with another very, very special review. So I hope y'all got something from this, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.